We cannot allow a handful of communist radical left judges to obstruct the enforcement of our laws.
What starts to matter is not what is concealed, but what has been normalized. There's no limit to the depravity.
President Trump did not rule out the possibility of a third term.
And the sadism.
The White House released this video titled ASMR, Illegal Alien Deportation Flight.
And the cruelty that we are watching now play out in real time.
This facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use.
You have to continually ask yourself the question, is this okay? Is there a line I wouldn't cross? Is there something I would not do?
People say, oh, the Democrats should be doing more, they should be fixing things. But if you want the Democrats to do things, you have to create the platform for them. You have to create the spectacle, the pageantry, the positive energy, the physical place where they can come to you.
Poland recently went through a shift towards authoritarianism. Unlike in Russia, unlike in Hungary, the media remained a place in Poland where you could criticize the regime. And as a result, democracy returned. The moral of Poland is that our democratic institutions, the media, the university, and the courts are essential. You know you're living in a fascist society when you're constantly going over in your head the reasons why you're safe. What we want is a country where none of us have to feel that way.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about this hilarious story involving 3 woke academics from Yale University who have decided to self-deport. Yes, that's right. They're self-deporting, fleeing the United States of America, and they're going to Canada. Now, this comes as President Trump is defunding some of these woke universities like Harvard University.
There's also this. Education Secretary Linda McMahon just dropped a hammer on Harvard, writing to the Ivy League school, quote, Harvard will cease to be a publicly funded institution and can instead operate as a privately funded institution, drawing on its colossal endowment and raising money from its large base of wealthy alumni. She goes on to say you have an approximately $53 billion head start, much of which was made possible by the fact that you are living within the walls of and benefiting from the prosperity secured by the United States of America and its free market system you teach your students to despise. Whoa. Steamboat Institute Blankley fellow Amber Duke joins me now. Amber, good morning to you. So the secretary not playing around here. Your reaction to this letter and the loss of Harvard's federal funding?
Well, I would love to be a fly on the wall in those Harvard board meetings over the past couple of weeks. But I think the broad point is this. Investment is not entitlement. The federal government does have a say if they are funding the educational institution. At Harvard, the first thing that they did after the Students for Fair Admission Supreme Court case was to say, OK, we're going to find creative ways that we can work around this, AKA, how can we sneakily break the law? And now fast forward, and they have refused to guarantee the civil rights of Jewish students on campus. They have repeatedly tried to violate the terms of Title IX. So if you are actively violating federal law, then you don't get a dime of taxpayer money. That should be basic.
Columbia University announced today it is laying off 180 staff members working on research funded by federal grants after the Trump administration announced its intent to cut the university's funding. In March, the administration announced it was cutting $400 million in federal funding to the university, accusing it of not sufficiently protecting Jewish students from harassment during pro-Palestinian protests on campus. The university, for its part, says it's been working with the government to meet a list of demands so the research funding can resume. But Columbia says the financial strain in the meantime has been, quote, intense.
And that's why I'm not surprised that this is happening, okay? These individuals are claiming that President Trump is a fascist and that there are signs that we're turning into Nazi Germany. So therefore, they're leaving, okay? And this is just part of a trend that we're seeing of leftists leaving the United States of America, saying that they're gone, okay? They're going to other countries because they're Trump deranged, okay? They're afraid of living in the United States of America. They fear persecution, okay? We already talked about Rosie O'Donnell, who has left the United States of America. She's in Ireland. And apparently, even though she's still in Ireland, that has not helped out her Trump derangement, because Trump is still on her mind 24/7. Again, even in Ireland, right? Even in Europe, okay? It's pretty hilarious how that works.
And I've been having trouble sleeping. You know, I really have. And I can get to sleep, but then I wake up. And a lot of people have told me it's cortisol levels, which it probably is. You know, I have a lot going on. Moving to another country is a big upheaval for your system, you know, and for your psyche. Even though I freaking love it here, it's so unbelievably beautiful and easy and calm, and the people are kind, and it's a pace that I love, and it's better than I ever could have imagined. I can tell you that much. So know that. I have not one regret. There has never been a moment that I said, oh, I should have stayed. I'm very, very glad I left before the inauguration and didn't have to watch or participate in the facade of that, you know. So it's great here. That's my bottom line. But I talked to my psychopharm guy from New York and said, you know, because I have been using Trazodone to sleep. And Trazodone is not really a sleeping aid. It's a depression medication, usually for people who are addicted to something. That's what I read, at least online. I'm not addicted to anything, and, well, I was sugar, but that's over. Thank you, Manjaro. So I asked him if I could get Xanax, because, you know, Xanax to sleep is fantastic. You take one, it puts you to sleep, and to me, I sleep the whole night. But he's like, I don't like to give Xanax. I'm like, you've been my shrink for so long. I've never abused any kind of med. I don't know why people would abuse Xanax, because all it does is make you sleepy.
Okay, you have members of the LGBTQ community that have decided to flee, right? You got all types of woke far leftists deciding to flee the United States of America. And this is the latest story about liberals and leftists and Democrats fleeing the country over Trump, right? So you love to see it, okay? And I want to talk about it, but before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Morgan & Morgan. Life can change in an instant. One moment you're fine, the next, well, everything is different. You're left with questions, with pain, with the feeling that you've been wrong, and the system, well, it feels like it is built against you. This is why you need somebody that's on your side, somebody that understands, somebody that will fight for you. At Morgan & Morgan, they're not just lawyers, they're advocates. They're here to give you a voice when yours feels lost. They've recovered billions for people just like you. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, takes on all types of injury cases, from car accidents to medical malpractice. They fight for your rights and the compensation that you deserve if you become their client, so that you can focus on healing. They've achieved significant verdicts over the past few months for the victims involved in life-altering car crashes, like out in Florida, a $12 million verdict, which was over 34 times the highest insurance offer. And they work on a contingency fee basis, which means that you don't pay unless you win. It's really that simple, to be honest with you. So you can start your claim now with Morgan & Morgan at forthepeople.com/blackconservative, which will be in the description below, right? The link will be in the description below, or you can scan the QR code on the screen with your phone's camera.
I'm a historian of totalitarianism.
I look at fascist rhetoric.
I've been thinking about the sources of the worst kinds of history for a quarter of a century.
Experts say the constitutional crisis is here now.
The Trump administration deporting hundreds of men without a trial.
A massive purge at the FBI to make people afraid of speaking out against him.
I'm leaving to the University of Toronto because I want to do my work without the fear that I will be punished for my words.
The lesson of 1933 is you get out sooner rather than later.
Wow.
I've spent a lot of time in the last decade trying to prepare people if Trump were elected once, let alone twice.
Look what happened. Is this crazy?
I did not flee Trump, but if people are going to leave the United States or leave American universities, there are reasons for that. One thing you can definitely learn from Russians
is that it's essential to set up centers of resistance in places of relative safety.
We want to make sure that if there is a political crisis in the U.S., that Americans are organized.
We've just gotten started. You haven't even seen anything yet. It's all just kicking in.
My colleagues and friends, they were walking around and saying, we have checks and balances, so let's inhale, checks and balances, exhale, checks and balances. And I thought, my God, we're like people on the Titanic saying our ship can't sink. We've got the best ship, we've got the strongest ship, we've got the biggest ship, our ship can't sink. And what you know as a historian is that there is no such thing as a ship that can't sink.
The golden age of America has only just begun.
America has long had an exceptionalist narrative. Fascism can happen elsewhere, but not here.
But talking about American exceptionalism is basically a way to get people to fall into line. If you think that there's this thing out there called America, and it's exceptional, that means that you don't have to do anything. Whatever is happening, it must be freedom. And so then what your definition of freedom is just gets narrowed and narrowed and narrowed and narrowed, and soon you're using the word freedom, but what you're talking about is authoritarianism.
Toni Morrison warned us.
The descent into a final solution is not a jump. It's one step. And then another. And then another.
We are seeing those steps accelerated right now.
There are some words, in Russian in particular, that I feel help us to understand what's happening in the United States, because we now have those phenomena. Произвол. It's the idea that the powers that be can do anything they want to you, and you have no recourse. This not knowing who is next creates a state of paralysis in society.
The tough student whose visa was removed because she co-authored an article in the Tufts student newspaper.
I thought, what would I do if guys in masks tried to grab my student? Would I scream? Would I run away? Would I try to pull the mask off? Would I try to videotape the scene? Would I try to pull the guys off of her? Maybe I would get scared and run away. The truth is, I don't know. Not knowing terrified me.
It's a deliberate act of terror. It's not necessary. It's just being done to create a spirit of us and them.
Продажность. It's a word in Russian for corruption, but it's larger than corruption. It refers to a kind of existential state in which not only everything but everyone can be bought or sold.
Critics are calling this a quid pro quo deal between Adams and President Trump.
Committed to buying and owning gas. He made $2.5 billion today, and he made $900 million.
There's an expression in Polish. I found myself at the very bottom, and then I heard knocking from below. In Russian, that gets abbreviated to there is no bottom.
Yeah, so you've seen that, you heard that, okay? You get the gist of it, right? These woke academics are fleeing because they believe that this country is turning into Nazi Germany, right? That we're becoming an authoritarian country under President Trump, right? This is what they believe. And hey, all I got to say about that is this. If they feel that way, I'm not going to argue with you, right? I'm not going to tell you that your feelings are incorrect, even though they are, right? These people are overly dramatic. And also on top of that, they're massive hypocrites.
Say, well, wait a minute. Harvard University, for instance, was sued for discriminating on a racial basis against certain students, Asian students including, and they're saying they want billions of dollars in government funding. Are they entitled to billions of dollars in government funding? Can't the government say, well, if you're going to get this funding from us, you have to do these things, which is well in keeping, by the way, as I'm sure you're aware, with how both the Biden and Obama administrations handled elite universities with letters based on Title IX guidance saying we want and touching on due process and free speech also in terms of how gender-based misconduct should be handled and other topics. No university at any point, not a single one of them, stood up to those administrations either and said, no, we think you're infringing on some really basic cardinal liberal values and we're going to fight you on this. They said, no way, we want that money, whatever you say. So really I see a lot of continuation, not a unique new authoritarian edge to this.
Right, Robbie, I follow your work, and I know you think that. And I'm not going to defend excesses of wokeness or whatever. That's not what I'm here to do. But you and I both know that both citing what's happening is wrong, that this extreme attack on universities for billions and billions of dollars of funding is wrong. And two wrongs don't make a right in any case. I'm a philosophy professor. I can tell you that. Sophisticated information. And there are plenty of reasons for wanting racial diversity on campuses. Take medical schools, for instance. We know from the UC Davis medical, do you want doctors to have doctors with no cultural understanding of their populations? Do you want a doctor? Is it really the way to pick a doctor that they just do the best on MCATs? I happen to know a lot of doctors. Doctors, empathy is required, understand. There's all sorts of things that are required. We have different cultural institutions in a democracy. We need to represent diverse perspectives.
This is a stunt, right? That's all this is, okay? But if it encourages other woke academics and liberals and other lunatics to leave, then hey, I'm not going to stop you, right? If this is what you want to believe, if this is how you feel, I am not going to beg you to stay, right? You can go. You can self-deport. In fact, tell your other friends, the other woke academics, they can self-deport as well too, okay? And you know that the Trump administration is doing a great job when you have all these lunatics deciding to leave the United States of America. You know my favorite part about this administration, right, is the fact that during President Trump's first administration, a lot of these clowns came out here and they promised that they were going to lead the United States of America if Trump was elected, right? And none of them left, right? They stayed. But during this administration, they're actually leaving, right? I mean, you have some of these people, they're actually following through on their word and they're saying, yeah, we're leaving, we're going, right? And I'm fine with that. I'm totally cool with that, okay? I mean, I can help you pack your bags, right? I mean, I'm just saying, like, whatever help you need, right? Whatever, right? If you want to go, that's fine, right? That's fine. Just, give up your citizenship on the way out, right? Renounce your citizenship and stay where you're at, right? Don't come back, okay? Don't come back, but I guarantee you, these people will be back, right? They will be back before the end of President Trump's term, okay? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, this is all nonsense. But if they feel this way, hey, it is what it is, okay? I'm just saying, I just want more of them to go, right? More of them feel this way, that's great. And just, be about that life, right? If you really are about that life, then once you move, just, don't come back, right? Give up your citizenship. Do not come back, okay? Stay where you're at, okay? Stay in Canada, Europe, Africa, wherever you want to go, right? China, I don't care. Just go, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you don't want to be in this country, if you don't like what's happening, then, it is what it is. I'm not going to make you stay. I'm not going to beg you to stay in a place where you're not happy, a place that you don't want to be. Okay, I'm not going to beg you. So, if there are any other woke academics that feel the same way, be my guest, right? Be my guest. You can leave, go somewhere else, right? Live a better life. But I guarantee you, it's not going to cure your Trump derangement. They're going to go to Canada or wherever else they go, and they're going to do the same thing that Rosie O'Donnell's doing, right? And go to another country, and they're still going to have Trump on their mind, right? They're still going to be Trump deranged. They're still going to be unhappy with their lives, okay, because they're obsessed with Trump. They're obsessed with Trump. And that is essentially what happens here, right? And they think that moving to another location, like physically leaving this country and going to another location is going to cure their derangement. It's not going to. You're going to be just as miserable, right? And again, a lot of these people will end up moving back to the United States anyways. I just find it hilarious that they're moving in the first place. And I'm not going to encourage them to stay, right? I am not going to try to convince them to stay at all. The more these people that leave, the better off this country will be, because we all know that academia is extremely far left. And if these professors decide to leave, they decide to go somewhere else, then that's great, right? That's awesome. Maybe we can get some more right-leaning or even neutral academics to replace them, right? And we can make our universities great again, right? I mean, that's essentially what President Trump is doing, right? He's making our universities great again, and having these clowns leave, I think, is a great step, right? I really do, right? This is why I love what the Trump administration is doing, because he's forcing the lunatics to actually put their money where their mouth is, and to actually leave the country, right? Which you love to see. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.